The vast silence of space was broken only by the hum of the galactic inspection fleet. Their silver ships glided through the empty sector, precise and proud, moving in formation like blades of light. The inspectors inside were calm and sure of themselves. This was not their first inspection, and in their minds it would not be difficult. Humanity was known to be clever, but still considered weak, still considered primitive compared to the old races of the galaxy. The aliens came with confidence. They believed humans could not hide anything from their scanners, and if humans had tried, they would find it. The lead vessel carried Commander Valen, a tall figure with cold eyes that never showed doubt. His voice spread across the fleet through the comms. He reminded his officers that the sector was reported to be empty, nothing more than a patrol check. But rumors had reached the council that humans were building something beyond allowed limits. Valen did not believe the rumors, but he knew better than to dismiss orders. Inspections had to be done, even if they always ended the same way. The humans would show their small fleets, their common weapons, and pretend to be more than they were. The inspectors would laugh silently, file their reports, and leave. The fleet extended its scanners. The machines swept across the darkness, searching for energy signatures, hidden stations, or cloaked ships. At first there was nothing. The reports came back clear. Officers relaxed. They thought this would be another wasted mission. Some even joked quietly, saying humans always tried to hide but never managed to escape the eye of the council. Yet, within minutes, one of the junior technicians noticed a strange pulse. It was faint at first, like a whisper in static. He tried to adjust his screen, thinking it was an error. But the signal grew stronger, and the numbers refused to stay still. He froze. Something enormous was reflecting back, something his scanner was struggling to measure. The technician's report spread through the fleet and reached Commander Valen. At first Valen ignored it, ordering the young officer to check again. But the second scan returned worse, the reading breaking the scale of the system. The commander leaned forward, his cold eyes narrowing. He demanded full spectrum sweeps. All scanners lit up at once, piercing the dark like a storm of invisible light. And then they saw it. Out beyond the drifting asteroids, hidden deep in the shadow of a dead moon, something vast was sitting silent. The fleet froze. The object was larger than anything they had expected. It was not a station, not a planet fragment. It was shaped like a ship, but no ship was ever meant to be that size. Its frame stretched across the shadow like a mountain turned into steel. No engines burned, no lights glowed, yet its outline was unmistakable. It was not alien. The shape, the markings on its hull, the faint remains of human design were there. It was a ship, and not just any ship. A human ship. The inspectors were unsettled. Their scanners stuttered, unable to read the full length. Some systems failed altogether. Ships this large were not meant to exist. The council rules had limits, strict laws against carriers of such scale. The humans had no right to build one. The fleet's comms buzzed with nervous voices. Some argued it was only a wreck, an abandoned project hidden long ago. Others whispered it was bait, a trap waiting to spring. But all agreed on one thing. If the humans had built this, then humanity had crossed a line no one expected. Valen ordered closer approach. His officers hesitated, but his command was final. The inspection ships adjusted course, moving slowly toward the shadow. Every meter they closed in, the presence of the massive ship grew heavier. The alien crews felt it pressing against them, as if the silent giant was watching. The surface of the vessel remained dark, lifeless, without sign of power. Yet the silence was not peaceful. It was waiting. The closer they came, the more uneasy the fleet became. Reports began flooding in. The hull plating of the ship was thicker than anything on record. Its size was enough to carry entire cities within. The aliens began to understand that this was not just a carrier. This was something more, something the humans were never supposed to reveal. Valen felt a rare chill creep through his chest. He had inspected countless fleets, countless weapons. He had mocked human courage many times. But never had he stood before something that made his own fleet feel like toys. The silence stretched, broken only by the hum of alien engines. The giant ship floated unmoving, like a beast in deep sleep. And then, as the inspection fleet adjusted position, one panel on the colossal vessel flickered with light. A single window lit up, small compared to the bulk, yet blinding in the darkness. The inspectors froze. For the first time, fear spread openly through the fleet. The dead ship was not dead. Something inside had stirred. And in that moment the Galactic Inspection Fleet realized their mistake. They had not come to inspect. They had come to wake something humanity had tried to keep hidden. Something too large to hide forever. Something they were never meant to see. The shadow of the giant vessel filled every screen across the alien fleet. What had first appeared as a silent wreck now looked more alive with every passing moment. The inspectors sat in their chairs with stiff spines, their hands trembling slightly though they tried to hide it. They had been trained to act without fear, to follow regulations with calm hearts, yet none of their training had prepared them for the sight of a ship that should not exist. The scanners still struggled to capture the full size. The data kept breaking into errors, numbers looping into nonsense. It was too large, too strong, and too strange for their machines to measure. Commander Valen stood in the command hall of the lead vessel. His sharp gaze stayed fixed on the image of the human ship projected before him. He did not speak at first, only studied the endless metal surface that stretched like a continent of steel. Finally, he gave a sharp order to magnify the view. The image shifted, pulling closer, sliding across thick armor plates marked with scars of ancient burns and deep lines of construction. The markings were human, yes, but they were unlike any seen before. Their design carried both brute force and quiet elegance, a mixture of practicality and hidden pride. The officers whispered in low voices, wondering if this was a relic, a forgotten experiment, or something much worse. One of the younger inspectors dared to ask if perhaps the humans had built this ship as a bluff, a weapon that looked dangerous but was not truly functional. His words sounded weak even as he spoke them, and the silence that followed from the other officers crushed his theory. Even Valen, who rarely showed emotion, let out a breath that carried weight. "If this is a bluff," he said quietly, "then it is the most dangerous bluff I have ever seen." The fleet adjusted position, circling slowly around the vessel. The more they saw, the more impossible it became to dismiss. The ship was not abandoned. Its hull was clean, its structure complete, and faint energy trails were beginning to appear around certain sections, as though it were only just now stirring awake. The inspectors realized this was not some ancient relic. This was new. It was waiting. The comm channels filled with voices debating what to do. Some argued they should leave immediately and report back to the council. Others demanded they continue the inspection, claiming they could not return without evidence. The pride of their mission clashed with the fear rising inside them. To retreat without answers was weakness. To stay meant danger. Commander Valen listened to them all and then silenced the room with one raised hand. His command was steady, his voice cold. "We approach." "We confirm." His order carried no doubt, but in his heart he felt a shadow creeping, an instinct whispering that something terrible was about to unfold. The ships edged closer, their lights crossing the metal skin of the massive carrier. Then one of the inspectors gasped. Shapes were visible along the hull, not decorations, not scars, but doors. Dozens, no, hundreds of vast hangar doors stretched across its sides, large enough to release fleets of smaller ships. If even a fraction of those doors opened, an entire war could spill from the belly of this one vessel. The realization spread like fire through the alien crews. This was not just a carrier. This was a fortress, a world of war wrapped in steel. As the inspectors watched, one of those hangar doors shuddered, then stopped. The aliens flinched, waiting for it to open. But it did not. Instead, faint lines of light began to glow along the ship's edges, spreading slowly like veins awakening under skin. It was not the steady burn of old engines or the weak flicker of dying systems. It was controlled, intentional, and patient. The vessel was choosing to wake. Inside their ships, the aliens felt the weight of something unseen pressing against them. Their sensors crackled with interference, and their engines stuttered as though some field was surrounding them. Panic whispered through the ranks, but none dared say it aloud. They were trapped in the shadow of something far beyond their power. Valen clenched his hands behind his back, forcing his voice to remain steady as he gave the next order. "Hail it! Demand identification." The comm officers obeyed, sending out signals, codes, requests in every known frequency. For long moments, there was only silence. Then, against all hope, one of the windows on the massive ship flickered again. A signal returned. Not static. Not noise. A language. The alien fleet froze, their hearts pounding. The signal was human. The words were distorted but clear enough to understand. "Inspection failed," the voice said, deep and steady, carrying no rush and no fear. "You were never meant to see this." The inspectors stared at one another, speechless. The voice had come from the ship itself. It was awake. It was aware. And it had noticed them. Before anyone could speak again, the sensors screamed with warnings. Thousands of objects were moving inside the supercarrier, their signatures lighting up like a sudden storm. Fighters, drones, and war machines filled the screens, packed tight within the belly of the ship, waiting for release. The fleet was no longer looking at an empty hulk. They were looking at an arsenal, a monster with teeth. The silence broke into chaos across the alien ships. Officers shouted, scanners failed, and fear rose like a flood. Commander Valen's calm face finally cracked, his jaw tightening as he whispered words no one wanted to hear. "It is not a wreck. It is alive." The silence after the human voice ended was heavier than the void outside their ships. Every alien officer sat frozen, their eyes locked on the colossal vessel that now pulsed with quiet power. The scanners screamed again, flooding their screens with warnings. Inside the massive hull of the supercarrier, countless smaller crafts were shifting. Fighters, bombers, drones, machines of war all moving as if waking from a long slumber. The numbers were staggering. No alien fleet had ever carried so many within a single ship. The inspectors had come to judge, but now they were the ones being judged. Commander Valen tried to speak, but the words caught in his throat. His training, his pride, told him to act, to command without fear. Yet deep inside, instinct whispered that the fleet stood before something that should never have been built. He forced his voice into the comms. "Maintain position. Do not panic. But his officers could hear the thing crack in his tone. For the first time, their commander was shaken. Then the human voice returned, clearer, stronger, as if the ship itself was now fully awake. Inspection protocol denied. You have entered restricted space. Leave now, or witness what was never meant for you. The voice echoed through every channel, bypassing security locks, crawling directly into their systems. It was not a threat shouted with rage. It was calm, steady, and absolute. The alien fleet erupted into chaos. Some ships began to pull back, their captains unwilling to face what might come. Others shouted for orders, demanding direction from Valen. The commander's mind raced. If they fled now, they would return disgraced, accused of cowardice. If they stayed, they might never return at all. His pride pushed him forward, but his fear warned him that pride could cost them everything. The massive carrier stirred again. One of the great hangar doors hissed and began to open. From the endless dark inside, shapes emerged, sleek human fighters, their wings sharp like blades. They launched in perfect formation, moving with discipline and speed that spoke of endless training. But these were only the first wave. Behind them, heavier crafts were powering up, their glowing engines filling the hangar with light. The inspectors counted dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. Their screens could not keep up. A hush fell over the alien crews. They realized the truth. This ship was not just a carrier. It was an armory, a factory of war. It held enough force to break fleets apart and enough speed to strike anywhere. It was not meant for defense. It was meant to end wars before they began. "Commander," one officer whispered, her voice trembling, "we must retreat." But before Valen could reply, the human voice cut through the silence once more. "You inspected us for weakness. You came searching for forbidden weapons. Now you stand inside one." The words sent chills across every ship. The alien fleet had thought they were the hunters. Now they were prey, caught in the sight of a predator they never believed existed. The fighters spread out, surrounding the alien fleet without firing a single shot. Their movements were exact, as if every pilot followed one mind. Alien crews watched as their escape routes closed one by one. Engines ready, weapons primed, the human formation hung in silence, waiting for the command to strike. But the strike never came. Instead, the carrier itself came alive. Vast lights ran across its hull, glowing like rivers of fire. Towering cannons unfolded from hidden compartments, their barrels longer than some alien ships. The energy surging through them rattled sensors, making screens flicker. The inspectors knew one blast could erase them all. Yet no attack came. The silence was worse than destruction. It meant choice. The humans were letting them live for now. Valen's heart pounded. His pride told him to demand surrender, to remind the humans that the council ruled the stars. But the sight before him silenced those thoughts. He realized in a single cold breath that the council had no power here. The humans had built something greater than law, greater than control. They had built fear. The human voice returned, softer but sharper than before. "Tell your council. Their inspection is over. Their judgment is nothing. What you saw today, you should forget." The fleet did not move. No one dared. Even retreat felt dangerous, as though turning their backs on the carrier would be an insult that could trigger their end. The humans waited, their fighters still circling, their ship glowing with restrained power. It was a warning wrapped in silence. Commander Valen swallowed the bitter truth. They had not found weakness. They had uncovered strength far beyond their understanding. And the humans had chosen, with frightening calm, not to destroy them. At least not yet. The alien fleet drifted in tense silence, locked within the shadow of the human supercarrier. The fighters that surrounded them moved with terrifying discipline, holding formation without error, their engines glowing like silent warnings. Every alien officer could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on their chests. This was no ordinary ship. It was not simply a weapon or a carrier. It was a statement, and the statement was clear: humanity had secrets the galaxy was never meant to see. Commander Valen's command deck was filled with strained voices. Officers argued, their words spilling over one another. Some begged to retreat before it was too late, others demanded they gather proof and call for reinforcements. The comms cracked with fear disguised as strategy. Valen raised his voice, sharp and commanding, to silence them. Enough. We will not scatter like frightened prey. His words carried strength, but his eyes betrayed unease. He was a commander of the council, trained to face dangers without hesitation. Yet this danger felt different. It felt alive. Another human transmission came through, this time unfiltered, pouring directly into the minds of everyone aboard the alien ships. Your inspection ends here. You saw what you should not. You have two choices: leave now, or learn what this ship was built for. The calmness of the voice made the threat heavier. It was not shouted with anger or cruelty. It was offered like fact, inevitable and unshakable. The aliens understood the meaning, the humans did not fear them. They did not even consider them worthy of effort. A wave of panic broke across one of the smaller alien vessels. Without waiting for orders, the ship spun its engines to full and bolted for open space. Its captain hoped to slip away, to vanish into the void and warn the council of what they had seen. But before the ship cleared the formation, the carrier stirred. A single flash of light erupted from its side, not a missile, not a beam, but something faster. In the blink of an eye, the fleeing ship was gone, shredded into dust without even a sound. The rest of the fleet froze in horror. The carrier had spoken without words: escape was not an option. Fear thickened in the alien ships. Officers whispered of traps, of doom, of judgment. Some clutched at their consoles as though bracing for impact. Others looked at Commander Valen with pleading eyes. They needed guidance, but even he felt the cold grip of dread tightening in his chest. His pride, his training, all of it clashed against the truth he could no longer ignore. Humanity had built a monster, and they were standing in its shadow. The carrier shifted again. From deep within its belly, more hangar doors yawned open. This time it was not fighters but massive crafts, heavy gunships, and armored mechs, rolling into readiness. Their weapons hummed with energy, glowing with controlled menace. The alien sensors reported impossible numbers. The humans could deploy an entire army from one ship alone. That realization broke whatever confidence the inspectors had left. One officer whispered what they all feared. This is not defense. This is invasion. Valen's fists clenched behind his back. His jaw tightened as he stared at the glowing monster before him. He wanted to deny it, to call it exaggeration, but the truth burned too clear. The humans had hidden their power, had disguised their weakness, and now the mask had fallen. The council believed humanity to be reckless but small. What stood before them was not small. It was not reckless. It was deliberate. It was patient. And it was ready. The human voice returned once more, steady and sharp. You carry reports. You carry judgment. But hear this: you will not carry our secrets. You will not leave until we decide. The alien officers gasped at the words. The humans were not only threatening destruction, they were controlling time itself. The inspectors were prisoners without chains, held not by force but by the knowledge that resistance would mean annihilation. Across the alien ships, despair spread like fire. Some lowered their weapons, others slumped in silence. The fear was no longer of being attacked. It was of not knowing when, or if, the attack would come. The humans had turned the fleet into cornered prey, waiting for the strike that might fall at any second. And then the supercarrier did something none of them expected. Instead of firing, instead of unleashing its power, it moved. Engines that had slumbered lit with a low roar, glowing brighter than suns. The ship shifted its colossal frame, blocking the path to hyperspace. It did not fire, it did not destroy, but it trapped them completely, standing like a gatekeeper between them and freedom. Commander Valen felt his pride break at last. He had inspected empires, crushed smugglers, and laughed at weak races. But now, staring at the supercarrier that dwarfed all power he had ever known, he understood the cruel truth. The inspectors were not the ones in control. They were subjects in a trial, and the humans were the judges. The fleet waited, silent and still, while the supercarrier glowed like a rising storm. And in that silence, every alien heart whispered the same thought. If humanity could build one of these, how many more were waiting in the dark? The supercarrier loomed before the alien fleet like a mountain of steel and silence. Its lights pulsed slowly, each glow rolling across its vast hull like the heartbeat of a giant. The alien crews held their breath, waiting for the storm to fall. They expected destruction, but none came. Instead, the human voice returned, clear and steady, echoing across every channel, impossible to block. You came to judge us. Now you will see our real measure. Commander Valen felt the words sink into him like cold iron. He had stood in countless courts, delivering judgments with a proud voice. He had seen fleets bow to council power, species bend under inspections. Yet never before had the weight of judgment fallen on him. He wanted to shout back, to demand respect in the name of the council, but his throat stayed dry. This was no negotiation. This was a declaration. The carrier stirred again. Panels slid aside, and enormous weapons rose from its surface. They were not the crude cannons of smaller human ships. These were titanic engines of destruction, their barrels glowing with a slow, building power. The alien sensors wailed with overload warnings. Energy readings climbed beyond scale, each surge strong enough to shatter entire fleets. The officers gasped, some covering their faces, others whispering prayers in languages long forgotten by the stars. They knew what was coming. But the first shot did not target them. The colossal weapon turned, aiming not at the alien fleet but at the barren moon nearby. The entire fleet watched, breathless, as the weapon reached its peak. Then the universe split open. A single beam of light, brighter than any star, lanced out and struck the moon. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the surface cracked, split, and exploded. In moments, the moon was gone, shattered into burning fragments that drifted like ash in space. The silence that followed was deeper than death. The aliens could not speak. They had seen destruction before, but nothing like this. This was not war. This was annihilation delivered in a single breath. Entire worlds could fall to that power. The realization tore through them all. If the humans chose to turn that weapon on the council, no defense would stand. The human voice returned, calm as ever. This is only a fraction. Do not mistake our patience for weakness. Do not mistake our silence for fear. Humanity builds what it must to survive. The words echoed across every ship, branding themselves into the minds of all who heard. The inspectors trembled. They had come expecting to find a weak race playing with forbidden toys. Instead, they had uncovered a predator hiding in plain sight. One of Valen's officers collapsed to his knees, whispering that they had doomed themselves by coming here. Another shouted that they must surrender before the humans decided to erase them completely. Their panic filled the command hall, voices rising in terror. Valen tried to speak, to call them back to order, but the sound of his own voice felt small, meaningless against the roar of what they had witnessed. The fighters surrounding them shifted again, tightening their circle. The alien fleet was no longer just trapped, it was surrounded with precision, each escape route cut with deliberate care. The message was clear. The humans could have ended them already. But they were choosing not to. That choice was far more terrifying than destruction. Valen finally stood tall, though his body shook. He forced his voice to steady and opened the comms. We acknowledge your strength," he said, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "We will carry your message to the council." It was the only thing he could offer. Pride had to bend, or they would all be broken. The human voice answered, soft but final. "You will carry what we allow. Nothing more." For a moment, silence followed. Then, slowly, the weapons of the carrier dimmed, the glowing barrels folding back into the steel body. The fighters held their places, but the great cannon slept once more. It was a warning wrapped in mercy. The humans were saying, "We could destroy you, but we choose not to this time." The alien officers looked at their commander with wide, fearful eyes. They knew what he knew. They were not free. They were being spared. And that was worse than any chain. For it meant their survival depended entirely on the will of the humans, a species the council had long dismissed as young and fragile. Now the truth was revealed. Humanity was neither. Humanity was something else entirely. And as the broken pieces of the moon drifted silently through space, glowing with the last heat of destruction, every alien heart whispered the same fear. If one ship could do this, how many more had the humans built in secret? The alien fleet floated in silence, their eyes fixed on the shattered remains of the moon. The glowing fragments drifted slowly, burning like embers in the dark, each piece a reminder of the power they had just witnessed. Not one alien dared to speak. Not one dared to move. They had seen destruction, but this was different. This was control. The humans had destroyed a world not out of anger, but to make a point. And that point was now carved deep into the hearts of every inspector who had come. Commander Valen's hands gripped the edge of his console, his knuckles white. He wanted to believe they were still officers of the council, that their authority still mattered. But as he looked at the colossal carrier before him, he knew the truth. The council was powerless here. Humanity had written its own law, and that law was stronger than anything the galaxy had ever enforced. The human voice returned, steady and unshaken. "You came to measure us. You came to inspect us. But you measured with weak hands, and you inspected with blind eyes. What you saw here is not for the galaxy. It is for survival. And survival is ours to decide." The words cut through every ship, filling every heart with dread. The inspectors had become messengers, unwilling carriers of a truth they never wanted to bear. The fighters tightened their circle once more, then slowly began to pull back toward the carrier, slipping neatly into formation. The hangar doors swallowed them again, like predators returning to their lair after a hunt. But the threat remained. The alien fleet knew the fighters could return at any moment, and there would be no escape. One officer on Valen's bridge whispered, "Why do they not kill us?" The question hung heavy in the air. The answer came seconds later, when the human voice returned. "You will leave. You will tell your council what we allow. You will tell them that inspections end here. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not submit. And if they force us to show this strength again, it will not be a moon that falls." The fleet trembled at the words. This was not only a warning. It was a declaration to the galaxy itself. Humanity had drawn a line no one was to cross. Inspections, judgments, threats, none of them mattered anymore. The humans had the power to erase worlds, and they had chosen to reveal just enough to terrify every species that dared to test them. The carrier shifted, its massive engines glowing brighter. Slowly, it moved aside, opening a path to the stars beyond. The alien fleet understood the message. They were being released, but not as free men. They were being sent back as witnesses, chosen to carry the terror of what they had seen. No one would believe them at first. But the fear in their voices, the raw truth in their reports, would spread across the council like wildfire. Valen swallowed hard, forcing himself to stand tall one last time. He gave the order to retreat. The alien ships turned carefully, engines burning low, every movement slow and submissive, as though any sudden action might anger the giant watching them. The carrier remained still, its lights glowing faintly, like the unblinking eye of a predator letting its prey escape. As the alien fleet slipped into hyperspace, the last thing they saw was the carrier's silhouette, vast and unshaken, waiting in silence among the shattered remains of the moon. The image seared itself into their memory, a monster built by human hands, hidden in the dark, now revealed to the stars. When the fleet finally emerged far from the sector, the silence among the crews was unbearable. No one spoke of victory. No one dared speak at all. They knew their mission had ended in failure, but worse than failure, it had ended in revelation. They had seen something the galaxy was never meant to see. Commander Valen closed his eyes, the human words echoing in his mind. "Tell your council, humanity builds what it must, to survive." He knew he would speak those words before the council. And he knew the council would tremble, just as he did now. For if one supercarrier could exist in the shadows, then there could be more. Dozens. Hundreds. And if the humans chose to unleash them, no fleet in the galaxy could stand. The thought spread like a shadow across his heart. Humanity had been underestimated. Humanity had been mocked. But now the truth was clear. They were not the weakest species of the stars. They were the most dangerous.